Now, to be honest with you, this came out of probably the biggest missed area of most every estate sale that I have personally been to. And that's hundreds, probably thousands of them at this point. And that is the linen closet. And that's exactly where I found the coolest item I've probably found all year. It's not the most valuable by far, but it is truly one of the coolest items I have found sourcing. Hey, it's Don. Today we're going to look at something that I picked up from an estate sale. Now, I don't go to many estate sales these days at all because we've pretty much found other areas that guarantee us a massive amount of material in bulk. I try to stay to bulk purchases, but in some instances there is a need to go to an estate sale because there may be something specific there that we, specialize in or that most other people may not pay attention to. Going to estate sales is hit or miss for most people, but what we do is I research who used to live at that estate, what that person did, what's their history. And in this case, the person who owned this estate was a pilot during World War II in the U.S. Army. There wasn't an Air Force. We had no Air Force in World War II or before. What we had was the U.S. Army Air Corps. So it usually says U.S. Army pilot if it's World War II or before. So I already knew that there could be some potential there for his bomber jacket and things like that. Obviously, that's a very high-priced item. Some of the bomber jackets we have had, some of the ones we've personally seen sell, can go for thousands, $5,000, $10,000 if it's tied to a very specific, pilot or plane or whatever the case may be. There's a ton of value and stuff associated with pilots. So we did go to that estate. So I passed by a ton of other estate sales just to go to this one. Now, I wasn't the first one there. I didn't wait in line to get in. I waited till later on in the day. I'm not a estate sale diehard person. I'm not going to sit outside. Around here, there were people that would sit outside overnight, and switch off a couple and things like that. Or people around here have inns, and they can get into the estate sale before it's open to the public and get whatever they want, or know where it is, or have some deal worked out, which is a big thing around here. I don't know how it is everywhere else, but that's how it is around here. The linen closet, though, is one of those areas most people just assume there isn't much value. Sure, you can sell a stack of linens for, set amount if they're embroidered or crocheted or something, or cross-stitch patterns or something like that. But other things show up in there, handkerchiefs and towels and things like that. And in this case, I looked through every single piece of cloth and fabric in the linen closet, and I was able to pull this out. Now, obviously, this may not look like much. It just looks like a map, but this is silk. This is a fabric map printed on fabric during World War II for the pilot who used to own this house. So it's a very specific collectible tied to exactly what I was trying to find, stuff like this. Maybe not this specific item in general. Pilot wings would have been nice. His jacket, mask, face mask or anything. But if you look right there, you can see Japan and South China Seas. Now, this is a U.S. Army chart. Again, as I said, there was no Air Force, so it's U.S. Army Air Corps. And if you look right on this piece here, what you'll see is SF, and then there's a -5. That's May 45. In fact, it says May 45 right there. And this is one of the last maps that the Air Force made before the war was done. Now, why would this be made out of cloth? What's so special about basically a fabric map? There's other ones, schools have them sometimes where they're lined with canvas in the back and things like that. Well, for those pilots that were CBI, China, Burma, and India, assigned in the Pacific Theater, you're in a hot, humid environment. Paper would not last more than a day or so, especially with torrential rains. If the pilot gets shot down, he has to ditch his plane or whatever the case may be, he's on his own. He has to figure out how to get back to safety instead of being captured or surrendering or whatever the case may be. It's his duty as a U.S. soldier, to not give up the fight. So what they did is they issued these silk fabric maps, and these maps would save their lives. It has the currents in the area, it has winds and things like that. So there's a lot of information a pilot can use. All he needs is a compass, and back in this same time frame, they had compasses that were hidden inside either a pants button, a 4-hole button with one little dot that was highlighted, which was the north, or there might have been some fancy dress buttons, uniform buttons on the jacket. You could unscrew the face and there was a full-fledged compass underneath that. I've had one once before. They go for $300-400, so it's a very rare item. Indeed, you can find those still on uniforms where people didn't even know they were there. If you've watched me enough, I have the hidden locket, hidden compartment button, which I've shown before in several different videos as well. That's the type of thing that, pilots were supplied. Now let me just show you how big this is too. It's a pretty big chunk of fabric here. Do I have it right side up? Nope, I have it upside down. So this is how big this is. It's not some small map. It's a full-size map, covers the whole area. It's got a lot of breakdown, what would be the best, safest places. It's got the currents, water currents. It looks like air currents as well. Again, only a pilot in this theater of operation, only a pilot having a mission that would need a map covering this area would have this. They don't just give these out to anybody. You don't give out, or make available to the enemy a map that you'll be using in the future. So obviously, these would only be handed out to, those in need of this specific map. They wouldn't give out extra information. They wouldn't want the enemy to retrieve a map that showed different areas and things like that. So at the beginning of the war in 1941, the maps only covered certain areas, nowhere near Japan, because obviously Japanese Air Force, Japanese pilots had superiority over the region, over the area. So as we got closer, we made new maps, the maps specific to their combat duty, their flight, whatever the case may be, bomb sortie, whatever they were doing at the time. Towards the end of the war, in May of 1945, when this was done, we were targeting Tokyo and Japan in general for the final push, for a final possible invasion or whatever the case may be that we could do to end the war. So there weren't many of these made. This one here is probably the rarest one that I have personally seen. Now, if you look on eBay and other sources like that, some of the silk maps may only sell for $15, $20, $30. This one routinely sells for $130 to $200. It may even go for more on other sites, but those are eBay prices and what they've sold on eBay in the last few years for. Though it's not anywhere near the most expensive item we've been able to pick up out in the wild, it is actually the coolest item to me because it's something very specific tied to a very specific time in history. My father, as I said, was in the military. He served during the Korean War. I have most of his accoutrements. I have his footlocker, his uniform, a bunch of other stuff, including some bringbacks from Korea when he was over there. So I've been into military collectibles for, at least 30 years. It's why I specifically target places that I can find Militaria at, especially the more unique, the bizarre, the more interesting type of thing, like a silk map for a Air Corps pilot, made in 1945. Now, we're going to look at some on eBay just to give you a quick example, but the point here is that we target everything, even estate sales. I don't just randomly go anywhere these days. It's usually not beneficial to us. Sure, once in a while I could come out with something really good, but the majority of the time around here, it's usually been scoped out before, I've even got there. If it's an estate sale, they have people that come in and buy the best stuff, or they themselves will sell the best stuff online, and it won't even be in the estate sale to begin with. In this case, it's stuff that's missed that I do the best in, so I don't really care if I'm there first or not. As long as you've got the right place to go. Now, this wasn't the only thing we got there. I got other military items there, too, that will make us a pretty good penny. I just have a couple of dollars into this. I paid almost nothing for it because to them it was just a linen item. It wasn't anything special, even with the map on it. It's just a piece of silk. You can buy patterned fabric that has maps on it right now today, just as a patterned fabric for scrappers and scrapbookers and things like that. So to someone who doesn't know enough, they're going to miss it. Which is another reason why we can do extremely well in places like a linen closet, places that most people wouldn't expect to find something worth a ton of money. Now, I know there's other folks out there that do okay with linen closets. They'll buy embroidered stuff, crocheted items, needlepoint, fancy stitching and things like that, napkins and doilies and on and on and on. Sure, there's that stuff in there as well, too, but for the military guy, for the diehard collectors of vintage and historical items, there's still stuff can be found in those sorts of places, too. So we're on eBay, and I just typed in silk map in Army. There's Navy, there's other maps out there. There's different types of maps, too, as well. Say a paratrooper map would be worth far more than my map. Those are specific to specific areas, to specific things. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with water. The one we have is specifically tied to that theater for a specific type of operation. I know where it came from. I know it's an Army Air Corps. So pay attention to that type of thing. Also, some of them have the bag, the material that came with it. They were wrapped in something as well. Something you could stuff in a backpack without having to worry about it. You will also see some from other countries, made by other countries, Russian, French, German. Most countries, if they were in certain areas, may have had these same types of things. It's not odd. It's not anything like that. Here's a China map for a good example that's selling for $400. It has Siam and French Indochina, so that's kind of why that one's worth a little more than most of the other ones. There's about a dozen, maybe close to 20 that can sell for 100 plus. One other thing to think about too is that there aren't many of them that show up to begin with. There's only 94 that have sold. When you look at active, there's only 17. With the 94, that's over 3 years. So it has a really good sell-through rate overall. So it's a really good area. It's something that's really scarce if only a handful of them are up at any given time. One other thing to think about is a lot of people just put these up cheap. They don't know the value. They don't think much about it. They don't research the information. If you look into this, you check off of eBay as well, you'll see that these routinely sell for good money. So if you put them up dirt cheap, say 40 bucks, 50 bucks or whatever, that's all it's ever going to sell for. You know, and you see some in here with multiple bids. This is China, Japan, Philippines, same basic area. This one sold for $152. So again, it depends on the area, the condition, and it also depends on how high, what your asking price is when you list the item to begin with. If you list it low, you're going to get a low price. And with this type of thing, chances are at some point you're going to have the only one of that specific type of map up for a year, maybe even longer than that. Like the one that we have. There may have only been a handful of them that have sold on eBay, and maybe twice that amount that have sold in other platforms, military-specific auctions and things like that. So don't ever undercut yourself on stuff like this. If it's rare, there's only a few that are up. The majority of them always sell. Price it high because you can always lower it later. But if you price it low, you can't raise the price after it's sold and gone. But anyway, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, some thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
Are in, and Leggy's got the legs to look at. Leggy's got the legs to look at, and you'll like to show her legs. Leggy with great long legs and crazy wild costumes. Leggy's got a dynamite look. Leggy's got the legs to look at, and you'll like to show her legs. And you'll like to show her legs. Leggy, 4 different dolls, each with her own costume, each sold separately.